Hi, everybody. This is Eddie White again, and this is my series of interviews with professionals from around the world, actually talking about assessment-related things. In today's testing in 10, we have a sponsor. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Via Lingua for sponsoring our interview today. Via Lingua is a worldwide educational organization with schools and offices in numerous locations, and primarily they do English language teacher training and teacher training skills for the training teachers for the profession. So again, a big thank you to Via Lingua. And today I'm interviewing a colleague and friend, Gabby. So hi, Gabby. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, it's a pleasure for me.
And Gabby, maybe you can just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit about the context where you work.
Sure. Well, my name is Gabriela Torres. I like to be called Gabby, though. I'm a language instructor at the Foreign Language Department at the National University of Honduras. And I've been working there for almost 6 years now. Yes, learning a lot. And we are trainers of future teachers. We teach languages to future language teachers. So that's a big challenge for us, yes, and it's
Gabby,
wonderful.
I forgot about that. So you're doing teacher training. Are you also teaching English classes as well?
Not all the time, but yes, in some academic periods, I have to teach languages as well. Yes.
I see. Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about just your assessment responsibilities?
Well, every teacher is in charge of their own assessments, classroom assessments, and I myself try to, well, work on that. And because we have, as I have told you before, we have a large classes, so that's our biggest challenge, especially
Gabby, when you, sorry to interrupt, when you say large classes, how big?
Well, we have some classes of up to 60 students. Yes, 60 students in our language classes. Yes.
I see.
For the teacher training courses, that's not that a problem. It still is a challenge, but it's more challenging when it comes to language teaching. Yes.
I see.
Because of all the competences that you have to develop and the assessments that you have to administer.
Yeah, and so can you give an example maybe of some of the challenges that come with assessing students, especially large numbers of students?
Sure. One of them is regarding the assessment principles, I would say practicality, especially when it comes to assessing writing assignments. Yes. So we have to do a lot of group work to encourage them to work in groups as a team, and also a lot of pair work as well.
Gabby, does the large numbers that you're talking about, does that limit your choices in terms of assessment? Because you're dealing with,
Of course it does. Especially when we talk with regard to formative assessment, I know the importance of formative assessment. However, it's kind of difficult when you have that number of students. So I have to make a lot of decisions to have formative assessment in my classes without taking too much time. So what I do, as I said before, is that I use a lot of peer work. Yes, they work in pairs, and I encourage peer evaluation or assessment and self-assessment as well.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess it's kind of frustrating to some degree to professionals like you or who are assessment literate and know the types of assessments you'd like to be able to do. But as you said, the practicalities of it and sometimes the numbers, can limit what you're able to do.
Yes, and also you have to run the extra mile with
Yeah.
them if you want to apply valid and reliable assessments to
Yeah.
your students, because sometimes I have to schedule, not in class, but some other time. We have to find some other time to assess their speaking skills, for example, because maybe 1 hour class was not enough to assess all of them or to listen to all of them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Gabby, in your context, do you set up the grading framework for your courses and you decide what assessments you're going to do, or is that a collaborative thing with your colleagues? Or in some, as you know, in some departments it's kind of fixed. It's fixed by the department, and teachers kind of have to follow that, follow the assessments that are in place. Can you talk a little bit about that?
In our department, teachers are free to design their own assessments and to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
However, collaboration is encouraged. And what we do is that we work in collaborations with teachers that teach the same class. For example, right now I'm teaching a basic course, and we are doing action research, yes, to try
Uh-huh.
some new stuff, especially regarding formative assessment
Right.
and peer assessment for speaking skills. So they have to record themselves according to the topic that we are studying in class, and then
Right.
they have to send this recording to their peer, and we provide a short and simple rubric for them to follow, and they have to give comments to their peers, and they have to listen to the recording, and then we discuss in class. So
Right.
that's what we are trying right now, that we are teaching online. And but every teacher is free to design their own
Right.
assessment.
And Gabby, that's very interesting. That type of peer assessment, and students are giving feedback to each other. And as you know, with peer assessment, usually, I mean, students need to be taught how to do it. And sometimes, I
Yes.
think sometimes teachers can assume that, oh, I'm going to get them to do a peer assessment, and because sometimes it doesn't work very well. So how is it going with your students, and are they able to do it well? Is there any difficulties with it?
For some of them, it's difficult because they involve feelings. Like my classmate is going to feel bad if I say
Yeah.
something that he doesn't like. However, we try to, as you said, it's something to be taught. And we tell them to be objective, and we tell them that the assessment, the purpose of the assessment is to help them grow in
Yeah.
the class or to help them learn. So what I tell them is, at the end of this class, you are going to give me feedback for me to become a better teacher. And if you tell me that everything was perfect and everything was excellent, I'm not going to improve as a teacher. So
Yeah.
the same happens among you guys, I tell them. So you have to see it like you're helping each other to learn the language. So in that way, they are learning. Yes, they
Yeah.
are learning, and some of them give very accurate comments, and they are very objective. For some others, still a little bit difficult, and they mark excellent, excellent, and they don't write any comment to their peers. So we have to work a little bit more on that.
Yeah. Gabby, we've talked before, and I think one of the challenges for teachers and people doing teacher training also is just changing people's perspective about assessment, because some people, as you know, have quite a negative view about assessment, including students. Now, when you tell your students that, just generally speaking, the point of the assessment is to try to help you learn and help you learn better. Do they get that, or do they get that perspective, or do they still have, lots of students have negative views about assessment, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's something that we have to work on that still. And they come with these ideas from high school and middle school, and they are interested in their grades and they care
Of
about their
course.
grades. So they are, when they hear the word assessment, they immediately make the association with judgment,
Yeah.
not with a tool for improvement.
Yeah.
but we are trying to change that. It's difficult because, as I told you, it's something that they have in their mind since they are very little. And
Yeah.
when they come to college, it's kind of difficult, but then they see the purpose. And I have asked them about, as I told you, formative assessment mostly.
Right.
Uh, and now they are like changing their perspective and looking at it in a different way. So when
Yeah.
I asked them, how did you feel assessing your classmate and being assessed by your classmate? And he said, no, it was helpful because it gave me the chance to record again and to overcome my difficulties or my mistakes, to correct my mistakes, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
they are looking at it as a positive thing, but
That's great.
it's difficult.
And
Yeah.
Gabby, I think that's a credit to you also, and you're able to explain things to them. So, and your comments about students' views of assessment in general, I think it's true. Sometimes it's true for teachers too. Sometimes teachers have that very similar perspective, that kind of negative perspective about assessment, that it's just about judgment. And sometimes teachers shy away a little bit from assessment stuff as well. Can I just ask you just one final question, just about your teaching online there in Honduras, and what about assessing students online? Any particular challenges or issues that has come up with that recently or in your experience?
Yeah, for example, with regard to written skills, we have found, not only my case, but some other cases, that what students do to, because we are asking them to turn in written work or to write in forums, etc. But what is easier for them to do is to write things, for example, a paragraph in Spanish, and then they just copy and paste it in
Yes.
Google Translator, and that's their homework. And that's a big challenge because they are not doing their homework. Actually, they are
Yeah,
just translating it with Google Translator, and you can see it. You can
of course.
notice that. So, well, we try to motivate them as well. And again, peer assessment. You have to send your piece of writing, and the other student has to ask questions about the writing. So they have to be able to answer those questions.
I see.
And sometimes in our synchronous classes as well, I ask them questions about the writings. That's a little bit difficult because if I have 40 students in one session, then I would spend a whole hour doing that. However, we work with a lot of motivation, and also we use a lot of social networks, because
Right.
another challenge that we face is that in our context, many students do not have access to internet or
Uh,
availability because they had to move to the countryside because of the
yeah.
quarantine, and for them it's difficult. And what is cheaper for them is to buy internet for social networks.
Right.
So we use a lot of WhatsApp as well.
Right. That's
Yeah.
very interesting, and it sounds like I'm glad I asked you that question, but it sounds like you and your colleagues there are coming up with some creative and innovative ways of dealing with that issue. So that's
Yeah,
great.
and you have to be lenient at some point as well,
Yeah.
because in some places in my country, there are constant blackouts. So sometimes they cannot connect to synchronous classes, and we have a lot of issues.
Yeah.
That's
I,
what it
and
is.
and Gabby, I think that those issues are, I mean, people deal with those issues all around the world, and including here in the United States also, those access issues. So that's great.
Yes.
Okay, Gabby, I'm going to wrap things up here. Uh, I think I could talk to you for an hour about a whole bunch of different things related to assessment. So we may get you back another time. So I just want to say thank you for coming and giving some input and perspective on assessment from your angle. And thanks again to Via Lingua for sponsoring our interview today. Thanks, Gabby.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure.
Okay.